awesome guest today, Steve Ruffell from Orbit4. How are you?
Very good, sir. Thank you very much. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. And as always, Russell Valler, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Ryan.
Awesome, awesome. So it's nice to hear we're happy on a Monday morning, um, or Monday afternoon as it is. Now,
Exactly.
probably the best place to start, Steve. Most people will know who you are throughout the industry, but just in case people don't, do you want to give us a quick run through of your background, where you come from, and how you've landed at Orbit4?
Yeah, sure. No worries. So I've been in the industry from pretty early age. Around 17 years old was my first gig as a leisure attendant, which I think translates as glorified cleaner. But
Pretty
that,
much.
that's where I start. But I loved it. I loved that job. And then I've worked up through operations up to a management role. So essentially, everything from gym work to managing the pool and plant to the studios to dealing with members, retention, operations, all the stuff that operators still deal with today, day to day.
Yeah.
I switched out of the operational world when I was mid-20s and moved over to the supplier side of the fence. I've spent most of my career on the supplier side. So 17 years at one of the major fitness equipment suppliers. Again, started right at the bottom, joined as a sales exec, and then worked my way up over that 17-year period, pretty much doing every sales role that you can think of in the company, all the way up to the UK sales director role, which, although sales is in the title, you end up dealing with a lot more than sales. So you're dealing with marketing, you're dealing with after sales, you're dealing with all the departments of the company. And then my exposure during that journey to the industry was obviously huge, and hundreds and hundreds of facilities compared to just working out of one. So operations was great to working operations was great to understand the nuts and bolts of how a gym runs and dealing with members and memberships and retention and everything like that. Dealing on the supplier side, I've dealt with hundreds and hundreds of gyms across the UK, which gives you a completely different perspective because you start to then notice patterns of what works and what doesn't work. Different sectors of the industry, public, private, education, hospitality, they all work slightly differently, but there's common themes where operators do well and where operators struggle. So that was the bulk of my career in the supplier side. And then 3 years ago, I switched out of the supplier side and I've moved into the tech side. So I now work at Orbit4 as the general manager EMEA. I started as the UK country manager, and essentially my roles just spread so that I cover more of a broader region now, bigger targets and a larger region to go after, which is good. But it's really interesting because now we're dealing with technology, and Orbit4 sits right in the middle between suppliers and operators. We work with both. So now I've got this three-way broad view of the industry: operator, supplier, now in tech, and it gives me quite a good helicopter view of what's happening. And it's a decent experience to be able to pull on when I'm speaking with potential clients of ours or friends or people such as yourself.
No, absolutely. Just a quick one, just before we move on to in terms of what it is that Orbit4 do and the supplier side of it. What made you jump from operations into supplier? Was there anything specific that you went, "Oh, I fancy being on the other side of the fence," or?
Cash.
Um,
Honestly, yeah, I just couldn't earn enough money that I wanted to working in operations, and I'm quite ambitious. I was ambitious as a young man. I was working in operations. I really enjoyed it. I thought of myself as a good PT, but in reality, I wasn't that very good. But I just love I'm dealing with members, dealing with operations, and it's funny how things come full circle. I'm dealing with like things operations side now and helping customers work in operational excellence as we call it. Even back then, that's what I was passionate about: is running a good facility, running a tight ship. And the guys and girls that I used to work with back then, still good friends with them now, and it was a really enjoyable time. I really valued it. I was happy. I just wasn't earning enough money. So fortunately for me, one of the big suppliers came knocking. They were interested because I was essentially able to sell their product for them when people came to look around our facility.
Oh, okay.
And the opportunity to interview for a junior role came up, and I thought, sod it, let's go for it. And fortunately for me, I got the gig, but then was firmly thrown in the deep end, holding a breeze block and trying to swim and panicking wildly because the sales world and supplier world is completely different to the operator world.
The thing is, the big difference is that B2B, isn't it, versus B2C? I mean, it's a completely different. Although sales is sales, everybody says sales is sales, and it's I mean, people buy people and all that sort of stuff. But it's vastly different in terms of how you manage that relationship. So I can imagine first in it was a bit of an eye opener.
It was I panicked. I'll be honest. To use a very simple phrase, that first 3 months I shit myself. It was really concerning because I'd gone out of a comfort zone in operations, which I'd been working for about 5-6 years, and understood it very well. Could do it with my eyes closed. Could rock up for an early shift or a late shift or whatever shift, and do it with my eyes closed, no problem at all. And it wasn't very challenging, which is one of the reasons I wanted to move up and move on. But then moving into to a sales role in a big commercial enterprise where there are targets and a new type of person to dealing with buyers as opposed to members. Yeah, it was in that first 3 to 6 months, it was vastly different to what I was used to. However, fortunately for me, stuck at it, and then fell in love with that side of the industry, and in sales in itself, but more in creating solutions, and honestly went back to what I was good in operations, which is building relationships. You build relationships when you're an operator with members, and that's how you drive retention, etc. And I quickly realized that if you can build relations on the supplier side, that's the way to sell properly. And fortunately, I learned that in the first year, stuck to that. Was supported by some great guys in the company as well as I grew up through the ranks, as it were. But essentially, that became the new direction, and then 17 years I was on that side.
Wow. Ross,
I was in note taking mode there on what Steve was saying. So yes, that's still here, Ryan.
In terms of so it's quite interesting because you get to see it from a supplier versus the club operations. So in terms of how do you think suppliers think operators actually work versus the reality? Because it's quite a big difference, isn't it? In terms of this is how they'll be running their business. Suppliers will go, they want this.
Yeah,
and there's that sort of gap, isn't there? But you've sort of seen it over a long period of time, actually, how that works.
Yeah, it's a good question, actually. I would say suppliers generally think that most operators are resistant to change. And in actual fact, it's the opposite, because they're changing all the time. They're having to juggle members, they're having to juggle staff, they're juggling budgets, they're juggling a new trend that's come to the industry, they're juggling all sorts of things. It might be a complete budget cut. It's a tricky world for an operator. They're having to change. So they're not resistant to it, but suppliers often think that they are. That's why they can't sell to them. I think that actually what they're resistant to is complexity. And when a new product or a new solution gets presented to them, and the operators can see it through it very quickly, that this is just going to add complexity to my life. It's just going to cause more issues than it's worth. And if it's not explained correctly enough, or if it's not presented in a way that causes that creates a solution to a problem, that's the headache that's the suppliers and operators. That's where they clash. The opposite is also true. If the supplier is able to present something that's fixing a problem and can prove that it's not complex and it'll actually reduce complexity, I think that myth is then busted, and our operators do open up. And especially in our industry, if you can do that as a supplier, it's one of the best, well, if not the best industry to work in, because we're a pretty friendly bunch.
And do you find that there's obviously, Steve, you work across a lot of different markets. Are you finding there are differences across the markets? I think we were speaking the other day in the amount of travel you do to different areas. So How does that change market to market, or is it broadly similar?
It's similar, as in they're buying the same solution. So the solutions are released by the suppliers at the trade shows, and the whole world descends on these trade shows. And so these solutions and products are being purchased, obviously, globally. The launch of those products in different regions varies. Some are much more quick to adopt something that's brand new, and some are much slower. So the developed markets like America and the UK and some of Europe, very slow to adopt something new. In my experience, it take a lot of convincing. Whereas if you look to Asia and the Middle East, who are markets that are expanding and growing rapidly, they take on anything with regards to a new solution, and they think way ahead over there as well. Whereas the UK and the US, in my experience, they tend to think right here, right now, because we've done this for so long. Whereas the Middle East, who are essentially still launching the market over there, they're buying for the future. They're not just buying for now. They're putting things in place that will future-proof them as an operation way in advance. So they're not just talking about the design of a gym or the size of the changing rooms or the colours and the wall of the AV or anything. All of these things are fundamentals that they're going to get, and they do get right very well. But they think way down the track with regards to technology and where's the world going to be in 4 or 5 years, which is probably the wrong thing to say considering what's happening.
Well, funny enough, I was speaking to my brother the other day, and he's got a member who was out in China for 3 years, and he was saying how far ahead they are in terms of technology. He just said the West versus China. So America, Britain, all that versus China is significant. And he says a lot of that is because they're thinking so far ahead of where they should be or where they want to be, rather than going, okay, this is what the market wants now.
Yeah.
And that can be anything from gyms to whole of society. I mean, their society's geared different, but they're so far ahead of us from a technology point of view and forward thinking point of view. He said it's incredible.
Well, I think that's Steve, we were also, and Ryan, we had the chat with John Foy a couple of weeks ago when he's talking about the gyms they're building over there and the kind of gyms, Steve. And I don't know if you had a chance to listen to that one, but the sort of the description without him sort of giving away too much, the kind of facilities they're building over there. And yeah, it just seems like they are trying to push it and go kind of leaps ahead of what we're doing over here. And I think that flows really into what you're saying there, that they are looking at I don't know, maybe it's a cultural thing, bigger and better and improving, whereas we sort of look at what's going on in the trend, what's been historically good, as opposed to, okay, where are we going to be in 5 years or so, and building our facilities around that.
It's true that, and you have to remember, of course, the UK, America, we're an established industry, even though the health and fitness industry is a young industry comparatively to other industries. The UK and the US have been doing it for a long time, and we're a little bit stuck in our ways, and we're very protective of what we've done for a long time. I always bring it back to the ultimate thing, which is the member, the end user. They're so much more educated now in health and fitness, and they're so much more demanding in what they want. So that's a very simple thing to keep front and center in your mind if you're a builder of facilities. And I'm very fortunate to be able to travel over to Middle East, over to the gyms in Saudi and Dubai and around there, and they just future-proof it so well. They know that they're going to have all of these solutions in place because they will be asked for very soon, because the education of the end user is so on point. They know what they're going to demand.
I think it does help as well. I can remember when I worked for Marriott, Steve, we went out to where is it? One of the places in Turkey, and they were building a 5-star JW Marriott out there, and the cost comparison, I think it was costing them about 500 million to build this hotel, but it was floor to ceiling marble. It was, you couldn't build it in this country. It would cost you well over £1 billion, and it just wouldn't be. You wouldn't get your ROI back on it. It would be absolutely pointless building that type of facility in the UK. Yeah. And it's that helps as well. So like John was trying to tell us, this super club that they're building, he didn't go into too much detail, but this super club they're building, it's a lot easier to do that. Whereas over here now, you see, a leisure centre, you're looking at 60 million. and it's yes, it'll be nice, but can you imagine 60 million in Saudi or 60 million in Turkey or whatever? It would be floor to ceiling marble gym. It's I think that sort of keeps us back a little bit as well in terms of wanting to invest in these big products.
It's not just that; it's space as well.
Yeah, well, yeah.
There's no real estate available in the guys. All the operators are fighting over the real estate that's available, and if there is space available, you're not allowed to use it. Where if you're in Saudi, there's a whole desert to work with, and you look at some of the gyms that one of our clients, Gym Nation, are building over there. They are enormous and they're incredible, and they've just got so much space to work with. It's brilliant to see, but you think, could we do this in the UK? Well, the answer is no. It's just not available. So they're very fortunate to be to have that luxury, but they're still forward thinking as well.
I think the great thing is though the fact that we've got more growing nations now with the health and fitness. Because before it used to be UK and America probably bringing all the innovation forward, and obviously Europe as well, and then obviously the rest of the world would pick off what we're doing now, because you've got so many more going forward. There should be so many more ideas coming through the networks that everyone go, actually, let's have a crack at that. I mean, because we get a lot of Aussie brands over here now, don't we? Snap's an Aussie brand, but you've got various others that have come over, franchise brands and so on. But traditionally, it's really been the UK and America that have worked side by side, and now I think that's spreading, and it's becoming it's so much better for the industry as a whole, especially you guys. Well, obviously you're sat in the middle, but especially the suppliers, it must be amazing.
And as well, we are sat in the middle, which is great. We get to deal with both sides of the industry, which is a privilege and really cool, because there's so many conversations to have. And as the market just keeps on continuing to grow, you mentioned the franchise market there; it's just going nuts. It's a really interesting one, the franchise market, because it is going nuts and it is expanding. But of all the sectors of the industry that I've worked with and worked on, it seems that the franchise sector is, if you get a franchisee that just doesn't get it, they're from outside of the industry and they just don't get the industry. They think it's going to be easy because you open the doors, members will fly in, and all you do is provide equipment and some changing rooms and a nice soundtrack, and you're good to go. Yeah. I've seen that so many times, and it's just not the case. It's actually quite hard to drive experience, a community feel, retention, stickiness to a membership. It's a hard thing, and if you haven't worked in the industry or experienced it properly, I think people get found out quite quickly if they're just going to throw some cash at a facility, put some kit in there, and just hope for the best. Very rare.
I think the challenges as well now, Steve, is I don't know, when we're probably similar age, and when we first started the industry, everybody came through the ranks, so you had this great selection of general managers around in the industry. That pipeline isn't there anymore. So when you get an investor who comes in, I just want to be an investor, sort of standoffish, get a great GM in there. Me and Russell tell you to try and find a GM for a franchise now. It's really, really hard. I mean, we know some franchises have had 3, 4, 5 managers in a year and a half, because they're just not out there like they used to be, because they don't have the grounding like we did.
I think it's also the when we're sort of talking about franchising, and we're probably not going to be, the franchisees on the whole aren't necessarily going to be people who've earned their money from PT. They've got a bit of money to invest, and particularly now, I mean, this was kind of the case with me when I opened my franchise clubs. I'd been PTing, I had a certain amount of money to invest, had a couple of business partners, and it was an accessible thing. Now the guys are coming in, that's probably not necessarily the route. They probably haven't worked their way through the industry, so the experience they've got is great, and it's probably very high level, but it's over there, it's in a different industry. It's they don't have that built up 15, 20 years, and it's like, right, I know all of this, good, I'm going to open a great facility now. It's coming from either other franchising experience, or they're a doctor, they've worked in the city, they've got a little bit of a passion for fitness, or they don't. And that's the point I think you're making there, Steve. Sometimes they don't necessarily have a passion for fitness, and they're coming into it because they think it's a good investment. And it can be, but if you don't necessarily have the passion, if you don't have the passion, you're really in trouble. But if you don't have the passion, then you're definitely going to have to hire in people that are going to have to be amazing to drive this and make it work on the ground. So yeah, I think it's and I think also the cost of entry now and the the degree of success versus failure, like I think they really go one way or the other at the moment, clubs. I don't think there's loads that sort of you open them, they kind of is a nice little lifestyle business, and obviously too along. Sorry, Steve, I'm now off on my franchise thing.
I took us there, mate. It's fine. No problem.
But you either just have the guys who are like absolutely fly, and you're like, Christ, I need to do that, or you have the guys who come in. It's like it's a really steep learning experience, and I think that's actually a really good point to kind of start talking about, because I'm when I had my clubs, that was when I was interested in introduced to you guys, and you came in, and even at that point, I think we'd been running nearly a decade. But actually, some of the systems or the things that we even still didn't have in place at that point, and some of the checks were, it was like music to my ears as soon as we started talking. And Dan came and we put the systems in the clubs, and it was fantastic. So can you just sort of talk us through Orbit4? And because like I say, hands up, I'm a very big advocate of the platform. I think it's great. I think it does so much stuff that operators wouldn't even necessarily think that they need. But yeah, can you just talk us through what you do and why operators are using it and the kind of operators that you're working with?
Sure, no worries. Orbit4 is essentially a facility intelligence platform. We connect all the operating data that you can think of. We don't work in exercise prescription. We don't work in membership sales or retention. It's not that digital type of platform. It's a web platform and a mobile app that's specifically for operational excellence. So we help operators see what's happening to usually what they're blind to beforehand. We help them manage their assets properly. So the life cycle of their assets, which is rarely done properly in our industry, but done in every other industry around the world, assets are managed properly and it's a full life cycle journey. And we help operators run their facilities smarter. A phrase we use often is, you can't improve what you can't see. Well, we lift the lid on the data that you need as an operator to be able to make informed decisions, whether that be on procurement or a tweak in operational process, etc. We also work on the supplier and service provider side. So there are suppliers and service providers who use our platform as their own, and they're using it to manage their wider network of service ticketing, communications, contract control. And when I mentioned before that we sit in the middle, imagine us as the conduit between an operator and a supplier. We help to manage that seamless flow of information. It might be, and when I say supplier, I'm going to change my word there. Think vendor or contractor or partner. If you think of it as an operator, how many different connections you have outside of that facility or facilities. Imagine yourself as a multi-site operator. You not only have your kit supplier, but you might have them maintaining your equipment. You might have a third party maintaining your equipment or a section of your equipment. You may also have air conditioning supplier. You may have security supplier, vending machine supplier, pool and plant maintenance. All of these connections, which you have to get in touch with at some point, and you have to manage the comms with them at some point. And you have to manage contracts and pricing and all of the boring stuff of managing a facility, which is not as cool and sexy as selling memberships or teaching a new funky class. We essentially take the boring stuff and we make it very easy. We digitize it and we bring it front and center to the managers so they can see a helicopter view of exactly what's happening. And we put it in the hands of the gym operators, whether that be a gym instructor that needs to report something on the gym floor, or it be a facilities manager who needs to report something that's going wrong in the pool plant. So,
and I guess it allows you to not only track when you need to buy a new kit. Oh, Ross has gone. But also in terms of when the maintenance due, when you know what I mean. It allows you to, or if you've got a piece of kit that keeps going down. And I guess you probably wouldn't necessarily automatically realise that. Because someone just fixes it.
I mean, what I found, Ryan, and it's like what it does, and it does like even some like basic things. Like I say, we've been doing it 10 years, and you go into a club and you see a piece of equipment. I remember specifically, I walked into a club, piece of equipment was down. Piece of equipment had been down the previous week since I was there. Now, previously, it would have been, has that been reported to Life Fitness in this instance? We had a service contract. So I was like, you're starting to get annoyed because why is that still down? I pay a good service contract, and Life Fitness service contracts are great. They will have come out by now. Why haven't they come out? What's the problem? And then it's like, oh, I don't know. I'll chase it up. Okay, a couple of days later. So then I get a bee in my bonnet about this particular piece of equipment. And it's like, okay, what's happening with that piece of equipment? Oh, yeah. And I was like, okay, look, in the end, I forget if I phoned up Steve or I phoned up someone from Orbit4. It was might be Dan or someone to say, got this bloody piece of equipment. What's going on with, like you guys are supposed to be making my life kind of easier here. And I've now got this, feels like the team are saying, oh, this is slowing everything down. It's another thing. No, the bloody manager, and this is you still have this. The bloody manager hadn't reported it, or his email hadn't actually gone through, so he hadn't had confirmation. It's like, right, okay. So then, as soon as they put it into the system of Orbit4, I could then track it, and I could see exactly what was happening with it. And I think it was done in like a couple of days, and Life Fitness were out. But it's a very small example there of how previously, and it's the same with, Steve, if you talk through maybe some of the checks and stuff you do, because I think it'll be music to operators' ears. Like, it'd be boring to some other people. It's like your gym floor checks. Are they being done? Yeah, of course they're being done. We do the clipboard and we do this and we go around. Okay, that's really important. And if you're an owner and who's liable for this stuff, and if things go wrong, you kind of really need to maybe not have it on a clipboard. And actually, your system does all of this. I think it gives such peace of mind to operators. And I say that's a small example for me, but there are some really big things. Opening a gym isn't a straightforward. You've got a lot of liability and a lot of risk there. And I think that you guys massively mitigate that risk. And it's not the sexiest part of your business. I get that, but it's it's absolutely critical to me for any operators.
It's a really, really important point, and it's something that we lean into heavily. This phrase operational excellence, which sounds really complicated, but it's actually very simple. It's about operating your facility well, consistently, every day. Not just one day a week or a few days a week, every day. And the tech shouldn't replace the humans in the gym. Tech shouldn't replace anyone, but it should make things easier. And what we do is put the tech in place to make things visible, so data visible, but also make it really efficient. So technology drives the efficiency, and technology also drives the accountability, because then once you've got the data, you can make good decisions. It's about removing hundreds of small inefficiencies in the business so that you get this incremental improvement over time then it should just run like clockwork. To go on what Russ was saying there, if you think of just some simple things like your open procedure, your closed procedure, your brand standards check, your incident reports, an incident that does happen in a gym, how are these tracked and checked? Well, at the moment, it's probably tracked well and done professionally, but it's probably on paper or it's on Excel. We're moving into a world now whereby if you want to back yourself in an insurance claim situation where a member potentially has had a problem in your facility, and unfortunately it might go down a legal route, you need to be able to prove that you've got your operational processes in place, and that they've been done, and that they've been done properly, not just a piece of paper has been ticked. That doesn't cut it anymore with regards to the.
Well, when was that piece of paper ticked? So if you're going through you guys, it's time stamped. It was done at this point. Exactly. They come back and say, "Here's our tick." Well, when did you tick that piece of paper? Where's the proof? So
I've got a good story on that actually. I got a customer of ours all the way on the other side of the world in Sydney, Australia, a club called Squashlands, and we literally just got a call. I got an email out the blue, and long story short, it's a single site operator who's been operating this club for years, decades. Father and son relationship operating the facility. Really good, really cool guys, really nice fellas. And unfortunately, they'd had an incident in the gym whereby a member had injured themselves. Incidentally, they'd injured themselves because they were messing with the machine themselves. They were trying to reroute a cable on the machine and it had gone wrong or something along that line. So it wasn't even the gym operator's fault. The member had hurt themselves, though, and the incident had been reported and everything had been done. And unbeknown to the operator, a couple of months down the track, then they decided to, you know what, I'm worth putting a claim in here. So the legal claim goes in, and the owner of the gym is up in court trying to defend the fact that this member who'd interfered with the equipment wrong and hurt themselves, that the gym's at fault. He's trying to defend himself. And he lost. And the reason he lost is the members' legal counsel was able to prove that the documentation that the gym had in place could have been written at any time. Yeah. And so then, therefore, the gym, the case was, well, it could have been written any time, so you can't prove it. So then, therefore, the gym's at fault. It didn't stop there. The reason they got in touch with us then, their insurance company then cancelled their insurance and said, well, we can't insure you if you haven't got these processes in place. So you need a system in place that timestamps and geolocates that the checks have been done. And as far as the insurance companies go, these systems are used widely globally in other industries. Yeah. So why aren't they used in our industry? Well, guess what? That's why we got the email, and that's why we got on a call. And they now run all of their operational procedures and incidents and checks and balances through our platform. Really easy, really slick on the app. And it's all tracked and logged historically, so that you can always go back at any point and check that, check the history of either a zone in the gym or a procedure in the gym, or even right down to an asset. So everything that happens on that particular asset, let's say it's a leg press or whatever, any internal intervention, so your own checks and balances and maintenance checks, and any external intervention, so the supplier has been out and serviced the equipment, it's all kept all in one place, so that at any one point, if you need to pull that report and say, yeah, we're above board and we're safe. So
I guess the great thing is you can also manage your team with that as well, because you start having performance managed. I mean, the biggest problem with tick boxes on a piece of paper is it's done at reception 90% of the time. I think we worked out at Marriott because of the way they worked with their audits and stuff. It was ridiculous the number of tick boxes you had to do every day with your pull checks and everything else.
Yeah.
So you can understand to a point where the staff's bored, they'll just do it on the desk. Tick, 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 tick. Yeah, I've done the check. Yeah. But that's fine until something happens.
Yeah.
And then you're whereas with something like yours, they're physically, now they could technically still do it on the desk, and they could fill it in on the desk, but at least it's time stamped. It's you know who's done that a lot easier.
They can't actually. They can't. Well, they can, but it's geolocated. So if you do it on the desk, you'd be able to see exactly where you are.
Of course, yeah.
And then you can even set the system up to say that, well, you can't complete this check unless you've scanned this QR code to prove that you're standing in the pool plant room, which is quite sneaky. But
no, it's one of those systems. And like I say, obviously, on Fit Supply Hub, you guys are a premier partner, and we were having a meeting a month or so ago, and it just reiterated. And I say, I'm genuinely, like, when we were going through the meeting, like you could see the chap, the operator, run clubs for years, knows exactly what he's doing. You can just see when you have a meeting and you're talking through the product, and someone's looking at it, and you can see they're thinking, I'm doing this on a piece of paper. I'm doing this. It's like the realization, and it's like, it's one of those that once you realize what it is, and actually the risk that you are running, that you're not really thinking about when you're running a club, it's like, we need this. We need this system, and it's a great partnership to have. And I think it's also that kind of naturally goes into a little bit, because what we're sort of talking about here is kind of also making sure that our members are actually safe. So I think there's like two sides to this. It protects the operators, and that's great. And, you know, it should help you sleep at night. I think people, the only reason they, you know, are sleepless about this is because they're not aware of the risk that they run when they're running club. If they did, they'd be like, Christ, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm phoning Steve and I'm getting this in place tomorrow. But I think it's the risk that that members sort of run out, because you could be an operator, and if you don't, you assume that checks are going to be happening, you assume all of this stuff is in place, but actually, is it? So, you know, your real are the equipment, is everything up to standard? Is everything in place? And, I think that's the other side of it, that protecting members, that's also really important. And I know that this is over to you on this one, Steve, because I know you obviously had you're a big advocate of gym safety, and, you had your own experience on that. So I don't know if you want to talk us through that.
Yeah, experience is one way to put it. It's coming up to 2 years ago now. I had a terrifying experience in a gym. I essentially had a catastrophic heart attack, which was completely and utterly out the blue. No underlying conditions. I'm fit. I'm healthy. I've all the numbers of the body were all in check. Everything was fine. There was no warning whatsoever. This was the Monday before FIBO 2 years ago. Normal Monday morning routine. Out early, dog walk to the gym afterwards, and I'm 30 minutes into a gym workout and started to feel very unwell. And cut a long story short, it progressed to the point whereby I actually tried to leave the gym. I tried to go home because I thought I was just ill. I tried to drive away 3 times and fortunately did not. And after getting out the car the 3rd time, hit the deck in the car park and quickly realized then what was happening. The realization and the terror of what was happening hit me, and I crawled back into the gym. And fortunately for me, the only reason that I'm here today telling this story is because the team and the facility were so prepared. One, they had a defib there at the gym, and 2, the team were ready, and specifically Gaz, who is one of my guy. He was a mate anyway. I know the guy very well. I know the gym very well. Know the team. So he was a mate anyway. He's even more of a mate now.
I can well imagine.
Yeah, he saved me. He delivered CPR. He hit me with the defib. The guys were on the phone to the paramedics, and I eventually get hit with the defib a number of times by the paramedics, and then quickly realized that there's no way it's going to get me to hospital. So then they airlift me to the most local hospital. And that whole process went over for I think it was about 40 to 45 minutes of going in and out of consciousness. 10 hits of the defib in all, which if it wasn't there, if I wasn't at the gym, and if Gaz didn't do what he did, I wouldn't be here. And the stats are pretty nuts when I think about them now. So there's 40,000 heart attacks that happen in the UK every year, and there's only a 10% survival rate of those that happen outside of hospital.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah. And of the type of heart attack that I had, which is the left anterior descending artery, which essentially feeds the left-hand side of the heart, which sends all the oxygenated blood around the body. That's the big one. They call it the Widowmaker. And if you have that type of heart attack, there's only a 10% chance of survival from that. So I was extremely lucky, so lucky, and fortunately still here to tell the story.
Do you want to name the club just out of
Aptitude Health and Fitness in Farndon, just south of Chester? Absolute phenomenal club. He runs a tight ship there, does Gaz, and the staff are phenomenal. It's a cool club. I recommend if anyone wants to visit a gym that is operationally run very well, but also has an extremely strong community feel. The guys there are phenomenal. Yeah,
I think it's worth naming them if that good at what they did. I mean, it takes a big person to stand up, especially in a crisis incident, and that goes to show that those guys have been trained well. They haven't just gone through a first aid course and then left, and then 3 years later you crawl into the door. They're obviously doing the regular checks. And I can imagine that's on their Orbit4 records to sort of say they're doing these regular checks, they're doing the regular training, because that's the reminder, isn't it? It's very easy to get into a habit. I mean, like I said, I was very lucky coming from Marriott in the fact that was a very strict standards, and we were drilled down on it. But a lot of people don't come from that background, and especially when you're looking at independent clubs and people like that, it's not always automatic to go, actually, it's our 6-month refresher due. this month. We need to get that done. It's our 12-month. It's whatever it is. You tend to find the ones with pools tend to be on top of it a lot more than the ones that aren't, because the lifeguard thing, obviously they get shut down if they're not lifeguard trained. Whereas first aid, probably you should be, but it's a little bit of a grey area, that one, isn't it? So
it is. It's not consistent across the industry, which is the thing that I'm probably most passionate about trying to improve. Is that for example, defibs aren't mandatory in gyms. So how many gyms are there in the UK and how many defibs there are? Well, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
It's crazy when you think about it. If you're going to have a heart attack, you're likely to have it in a gym playing sport or doing an activity, aren't you?
Yeah, this is it. I mean, and then take it a little bit further, which is a little bit dark to think about it, but it has to be discussed, in my humble opinion. The industry is looking after not just the 1 or 2% who are into health and fitness their whole life, like me, or into sport. We're looking after a lot of the population who are trying fitness out for the first time. They're carrying. You don't know if they're carrying some underlying condition. You might do the PAR-Q and have a few checks, etc. But gyms are filled with people who are pushing themselves, and sometimes they're not coming from a history of good, strong health and fitness base. So if it can happen to me with a very strong health and fitness base, it can literally happen to anyone. So
I couldn't have it back. Oh no, go on.
I was just going to say, so the fact that defibs aren't mandatory and I'm not saying that all operators don't have, there's loads of, all the top operators do have industry, but there are loads of gyms around the country and around the world that literally don't have them because it's not mandatory. So it seems nuts.
Well, I remember when I started in the industry, Steve, I started at Spirit. It was part of Spirit. It was Spirit anyway. I can't remember the hotels. It went to Holiday Inn, but Forte Post House. And we used to do blood pressure, heart rate, full bite test, all that before they could even use the gym. Yeah. And then then the whole industry shifted to the health commitment statement, which basically put the risk back on the member. And that's all well and good because it takes the pressure off us. If they didn't tell us they got a heart condition and something happens in the gym, that's their fault. It's basically how that form works. But you sort of going, But it also took a little bit of the care away from it as well, because you've now got people, like you say, newbies that haven't, or someone who's coming back to exercise who hasn't trained for 15 years. Yeah. They could have an underlying heart condition, have high blood pressure, wouldn't know about it. They start and suddenly now they put themselves at risk. But all we've done is, do you know? No, I'm fine. Signing away they go. So, is it the right thing? I've always sort of disagreed with the way that went. I think it was pushed by the doctors, wasn't it? Because they were fed up with getting high blood pressure readings sent out to the GP. But it does make you wonder. Going, the more we go after this 83% who's not exercising, the more there should be a bit more responsibility to go, actually, maybe we should be doing blood pressure. Maybe we should make sure we got defibs in the club.
I think the industry is in a brilliant place, and the more awareness increases, we don't have to force. Well, we do have to force some people to consider exercise, unfortunately. But more and more people are waking up to the fact that health and fitness is necessary, and the more the longevity conversation comes into people's minds, and people talk more about health than fitness now, right? So we get more people coming through the doors, which is absolutely phenomenal. But we have a duty of care as an industry, in my opinion, and it's all about standards. There's industries out there that are known for being so high on their standards, and they're respected for that. Well, if we want to be respected as an industry, it's not just about a great experience and a great protein shake or a great class or a great AV or whatever. It's not just about the facility. It's about standards of operations, as far as I'm concerned. And if we let those drop, more and more people are going to be at risk. So,
and it leads into the client journey as well, doesn't it? I mean, if you're almost pushing people into those sort of checks early doors and you're caring about people, you're going to have a better client journey at the start, a better onboarding, a better client journey, a better relationship with your members. So you're almost sort of going, actually, that was the best way, because we got to see every single member, because they weren't allowed to use the gym until they'd had those tests. Yeah. And that's how we wrote their program. And so we knew absolutely every one of the 1,200 members that we had, or we knew them at some point. So it's definitely. It's an interesting point.
It'd probably help people on our retention as well, Ryan. If when we're
Oh,
actually
100%.
coming in, if we are straight away, we are saying we're on top of this. You're in a just really reinforcing you're in a safe environment here. You're in an environment that you're not used to, and that could probably be quite daunting. But it's a safe environment. You know, you're going to be not just supported to kind of hit your goals, but yeah, we actually care about your well-being, and I think that's so often. Well, it's so often in so many operators now you don't have that interaction at all, and quite the opposite actually. Even when you're walking around some of the larger clubs, you are very much kind of like, Christ, do these guys? Is there any safety here? Is there anything in place here, or am I sure? I've just done my QR code to get into this club, and this is all me now.
Yeah.
Just out of interest, Steve, I don't know how much you get close to the clubs to know their performances, but do you see an improvement in their sort of revenue and profitability as they bring your product in? I mean, it's not designed to do that. I appreciate that, but do you find because they've brought you in, their standards improve, and they tend to find their overall performance as a club improves?
We haven't got that specific data to be able to quote. We're building it at the moment. The platform's been live properly for about 3 years, and we've got some tremendous clients that have come on board, which are going to help us collate that data. We've just gone live with Virgin Active South Africa across their whole estate. 128 gyms there. We're live with Serco in the UK recently. We've just signed up NRG Gyms, so some big brands, and we already work with some others. So we're with JD Gyms. We've got Third Space. We've got some really strong operators who will help us collate those bits of information. They're really important. It's very hard to quantify because what we do is we're raising standards, and then therefore standards of operations. How does that then relate to a provable retention number? However, our argument will be that if your standards are terrible, and if your equipment is down too long, if your repair rates are not tracked and managed, all of these things, it surely adds to cancellations.
Yeah, it has to, doesn't it?
It does. It absolutely 100% does, because the exit surveys all say the equipment was out of order, or the place wasn't clean, or the standards weren't good, or whatever it may be. So the answer is yes. Our platform and our solutions aid those very important things of membership retention and then therefore increased revenue and yield. It's just that indirect way, which we haven't been able to quantify yet, but we're getting there. We'll get there.
Well, I think, Steve, it sort of reminds me a little bit of I used to have a business, a contact center business, and we couldn't always necessarily with that quantify that using us and doing your retention activity. Sometimes you can, but sometimes it's, well, where's the ROI on this? Are we actually making more sales by doing this? I always say, look, we're creating opportunity for you here, and actually we're boxing these things off. So instead of you chasing after it, you kind of, you've got this layer of stuff done. That's done. You're going to be working in a uniform way. You're going to be working well. And I feel like yours is also a similar product in that it creates space. So I always say you create space for the team. It's then not necessarily your job to say how you fill that space, but you have created more space. You've created time. You've created all of these things, right? Your processes are in place. Everything's tracked. You're not chasing your tail on all of this. Great. You've got a good base here. Now, how are you going to drive that? Are you going to interact with your members more? Are you going to be going out and doing outreach? Are you going to be just driving prospect? Like, are you going to be doing your corporates, or what are you going to use that for? But I think that what you do is just create the opportunity for that, and then I think it's kind of down to the operator how well they utilize that opportunity. That's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, it's very good point, very good summary. That side of it, we'll have some more data on in the future. It's one way that we absolutely can prove ROI, in which we do with all of our clients. It's actually very, very easy, and it's not with regards to the operational standards bit and operational checklists, etc. It's more to do with what's being bought by the business. So if you think what operators buy, they buy kit, they buy equipment, and then they manage it reactively. That's generally what happens. They buy some kit and then they manage it reactively somewhere down the line. Maybe it's 4, 5, 6, 7 years where they decide to trade that out. Our platform pinpoints the point where they should trade that out, whether that be on a
okay.
increased failure rate, whether it be on the age of the product or the residual value. So that's sweet spot, and then the other side of it is service contracts. The amount of waste in service contract purchased by operators is it's understandable because they don't have the visibility. But when they do have the visibility, the prescriptive purchase of service and maintenance cover not only becomes easy, it's also very quick. In fact, I can give you a live example of that. It's literally happened last week, at the end of last week. One of our customers down on the South Coast, BH Live, has been using the platform now for, I think it's coming up to around 2 years. And they've got annual renewal service contracts going across their estate. And each one of these annual service contract proposals has come in again. And usually it's either, yes, I'll just sign it, or it's, I really need to talk to someone about this. Should we be on gold, or can we go down to silver? Usually it's an elongated process of asking questions as to whether that contract should be renewed or downgraded or upgraded or cancelled.
Yeah.
The process happened in 1 day for the whole estate, quite simply because Rob, and he won't mind me saying this, who manages the business there, has access to the data, and he can see, right, I've got, I think it's 10 sites he's got. Well, 6 of these contracts are perfect. Re-sign. Simple. The data says they're perfect. Re-sign. They're not overspending. They're not underspending. 2, actually, we're on an ad hoc contract. We need to be on full cover. We'll be better off being on full cover because these sites are too busy and we've got less cover. And these other 2 contracts, we've hardly spent anything on this work. The gyms are quiet. We're overspending. So he's just done a tweak, which sounds complicated for 10 gyms, which usually is, but he's done it inside 24 hours, not in 24 hours, inside a few hours in 1 day, and able to tell the supplier, here's you go. Now, that not only is that reassuring for an operator because you're making a strong commercial business decision based on data, but you're also saving money. So that's one of the ways our platform directly pays for itself, just by giving operators the ability to manage the life cycle of their assets and their contract. Removes the guesswork, which there's a lot of guesswork at the moment. We just try to help operators out and make some serious decisions quickly.
I think that's a really good example to end on, actually, Steve. Seems as that's flown by. Now, just one quick question, just before we go. Is there anything that you would say operators need to look out for? Obviously, you're dealing with a lot of the bigger businesses by the sounds of it, and that makes sense. What we want to do is encourage the smaller and the franchise ones to get involved as well, because they're the ones that are probably thinking, probably need to save some money, but I don't really know what I'm doing. So is there anything you'd say? I mean, obviously, come and speak to you is an easy one, or one of your team. But is there something they should look out for that should make them go, actually, now I need to start having a look at Orbit4?
Definitely come and speak to us by all means. We're happy to talk through, and it's not a sales pitch, don't worry. So if you just want to pick our brains and understand what we can do for facilities or what we're hearing around the industry, no problem. We're always open for a chat. I think the industry is in a great place, as I mentioned before. I think that the more data that people have will not naturally lead to better standards. And I think the gyms of the future won't necessarily look much different. Fitness hasn't changed much in decades. You can get fit without a lot of things. The facilities are going to look awesome. They're going to look great. They're going to look more modern, etc. But I don't think they'll fundamentally look that much different than they are right now. But I do think they'll be run smarter. If you just follow the trend of other industries on how they've improved, operations are run smarter. And when they're run smarter, they're more efficient. And if they're more efficient, you don't waste money, you don't waste time. I think other than that, it's, for operators, my advice to probably close on would be, if you concentrate on 4 things as an operator, if you have friendliness nailed, if you're a friendly operator and build a culture and a good member experience, that's the first thing. Cleanliness. If you've got cleanliness nailed, that's probably the next thing. effectiveness. You've got to be effective in what you deliver, whether that be in kit or the utilization of kit or just the experience. You've got to get people to their goal while they walk through the door. And then the last one is readiness. If you're going to have people in your facility, be ready in case something happens. Perfect,
and that's a great place to end, I think, Steve. So, but awesome. Thanks for coming on. That's absolutely flown by. I love that. I'd advise anybody who's if they run in a club to give Steve or his team a shout. Details are on the podcast, or you can find the guys on LinkedIn, Facebook, and so on. So absolutely, but really appreciate your time this afternoon, Steve. I've really enjoyed it.
Cheers, guys. Good to speak to you.